Hello everybody and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be showing you how to make a customizable messages file. Now this is quite popular in minigames which have been put on marketplaces like say Spigot or Hanger, which is Paper's marketplace, and you want it so that your users are able to customize how their minigame looks. Now this is a really good selling point, and server owners really appreciate when they have the ability to change the messages. And this also might be really good if you're doing private commissions and you're giving it to people who don't really know how to code. If you can just have a file, let's just say messages.yml, and you can just customize all of that stuff inside of there. Then if you're not the target audience, it's perfect. They don't need to touch your code to change anything, they just need to use the file. So in today's video, I'm going to be showing you how to implement that in the most efficient and the most Kotlin friendly way. And so what we'll do is we'll firstly go ahead and create a new file, and we'll call this one messages.yml. Now we're putting this in the resources folder, and that's so that we can actually save this resource as a template. Now this is all covered in the video called custom YML files, but essentially all we're doing is we're going to write some stuff in here, and we're going to save this resource, which means that when your user first loads the plugin for the first time, it will create this for them. So what we'll do is we'll add a sample message. Let's say we'll change the message where you leave the arena. So we'll say leave arena. And then we'll put an example message. So we'll say you have left the arena. And then we'll just add a little celebration at the end, just so we can identify that it's our message in a few minutes' time. Okay, so this is going to be our sample. Now, of course, in an actual production environment, you're going to populate this with every one of your messages. Now, I realize that's a lot, but in order to make it work, you do have to do that. So make sure you have every one of your messages in here, or just a test one like me. And then what we need to do is essentially, well, we need to read it. So in order to read it, as I say, we're going to have to first make sure there's an instance of this file lying about. So to do that, in the unenable, we'll do it, or you can have it in a separate class, wherever you like. I'll just do it here. We're going to do save resource. Now, save resource is a function that's inherited from the Java plugin class, which we extend. And from here, all we need to do is put the name of the file and a boolean. So the name of the file for us is messages.yml, nice and simple. Now, the boolean is a little bit of a sticky one. Basically, imagine the file already exists on the server. You set this to true if you want it to replace the existing file with your default file every time. Now, of course, hopefully in your head, you're realizing that that's not what we want. We want to set it to false. And that's because, of course, the user, after we've generated it, should be free to make their own decisions about how it looks, and we don't want to override them every time the plugin starts. That would be silly. So what we'll do is very simply write false. And then now we're going to create ourselves a message manager or something like that. Now I'll just name it a message manager, and we'll make it an object. Now making it an object means that we can access it very simply from the rest of the plugin. So message manager. And it very simply means that from anywhere we can just do, for example, message manager and access all of the variables. Now if you wanted to shorten that down even a little bit, just make it messages or something like that. You'd be more than capable of doing that. But for me, I like this. Now, the reason we're doing it as an object is because, as I say, we're going to follow a similar structure to the config manager. And look how simple this is. From anywhere across the entire plugin, we can easily do config manager dot and have access to these three constants. Now, they may not be constants in how Kotlin traditionally defines them. For example, you can only create a const val, which is a feature in Kotlin, if it's a primitive, like a string or an int. So while this isn't technically a constant, in reality it is a constant, because these are variables that we're pulling from a file which are not changing. And that's why they're named in uppercase, because we consider these a constant. Now that's going to be the exact same for the variables inside of the message manager. So for example, if I was to create my val, and we'll do leave arena to refer to the leave arena message, what do I then make that equal to? Well, here we got access to the main class and did .config, which is inherited from the Java plugin. But I think to follow a similar structure, and essentially to aid usability and also readability from across the entire plugin to simply just be able to do message manager.leaveArena, etc. It'll look so clean and be so nice. So what I'm going to do is inside of our companion object, I'm going to create another layer init var and call this one message config. Now, the reason I'm calling it message config is because this actually needs to be a YAML configuration, not a file. The reason for that is because if I just do a regular file, so for example, if I was to get a file of messages.yml, which we are going to have to do in a second, I can't write .get. This isn't a thing. The YAML configuration, I can write .get, and I can set, and I can use all these functions. So we're going to make, inside the onEnable, this message config equal to, once we've saved it, so message config equals YAML configuration .load, and then we're going to put in the file instance here. So the way we create a file, which refers to a file that's been saved inside of our plugin folder, is the first parameter of this file is the data folder of the plugin. Now we inherit that again from the Java plugin, so we just write data folder. And then the second thing is of course the name of the file. So messages.yml. That's perfect. So now we can reference, let's do message manager, and just like with config manager and arena manager, this isn't actually going to do anything in the scheme of things. All it's going to do is load this object, so it's going to make sure that all of the variables inside of it, like as you can see here, will become instantly equal to something. Just so we can do that in the onEnable and keep it tidy. So now this means that from the message manager, we're now going to have access to the message config. So I would do leaveArena equals minigame.messageConfig. Now that's the reason we put it in the companion object, is because, well, mainly there's only going to be one of them, so we don't need a class level variable. We can have it in a companion object, which also we can benefit from how easily accessible it is here. So minigame.messageConfig, and then .getString, and then we'll write leaveArena. So the leaveArena here would be the key to where the value is here. So the getString will return this value. Now because we now have access to this in the message manager, if we go to the arena command and we find this here, you've now left the arena, we can now pop this string in here and do message manager.leaveArena. But we have a slight nullability issue. So what we can do is we can actually not null it. Now the reason for this is because it's going to let your user know that they've messed something up somewhere. And of course, if you're just testing, I'll let you know that you've messed it up. Now, the reason this error might throw is because, for example, you've messed up this key or something like that. Now, if you want to do some nice bit of error handling, you could always do an Elvis operator. So you could always do question mark, colon, and very simply do, you have left the arena. Now, what this would do is make it so that if anything on the left of this Elvis operator, so getting this string, it could possibly be null, and if it is null, then set leaveArena equal to whatever's on the right of this operator, which is this. So that means that even if they mess it up, you have a fallback. Now that's entirely up to you how you want to structure that. I think we might leave it like this because it's nice and tidy, but just beware that if you leave it like this and don't do any proper error handling, and your user doesn't realize they've messed it up because there's no error, then they will come complaining straight to you and on your Spigot page and give you a bad review because they'll think, oh, my message isn't changing. So just be careful with that. But anyhow, now this is actually going to work. Now this is a really clean and Kotlin friendly way of making essentially what is just a file full of constants. This is just an object. We're going to have loads of constants in here when you fill it out, which we can now easily, as you can see, access from across the entire plugin. So if I fired this up on the server now, this would be perfect. And this, to be honest, before paper and adventure became big, is how it was always traditionally done. But of course, we need to consider what if people want their own custom color codes and things like that. So to facilitate this, we're going to use something called MiniMessage. Now, MiniMessage is actually a part of Adventure, which of course, as we know, is a part of Paper, and Adventure is what brings all of these components. Now, MiniMessage is a similar system whereby you can do all of the advanced stuff, like you can run commands on click, you can use the hover events. And you can see the format here. It's very similar to, I guess it's similar to HTML in the sense that you have tags which surround strings and then those properties are applied. You can see, look how easy it is to make a click event. Look how easy it is to make a hover event. Now, the point of MiniMessage is to make it so that we can have a nicely formatted chat colors and decoration and so on within a single string. And every day, more and more plugins get MiniMessage put inside of them because it's becoming extremely popular now that it's included inside of Paper. It's native to Paper. You don't need to do any extra features. So all you would need to do really is take this and then maybe add a comment inside of your messages.yml, just right at the top, and we'll just say, for formatting, C, and then you would just link that. And then people would know exactly how to format your message. Now, of course, the people would then set that message, but then how do we read it and turn it into a nice component for the users to actually see? Because right now it would just show as a plain string. And now it's actually very simple. So if I was to go to my message manager, instead of doing all of this fuss, we're going to do a similar thing to what we're doing, except we're going to need an instance of MiniMessage. So you'll already have access to this. As I say, nothing else required. So we'll do MiniMessage dot MiniMessage and then dot deserialize, and you can see that's actually going to return a component. So if we just pop this in here, and we'll fill in that parentheses there. So we're going to take this string here, and we'll just move this slightly. So the Elvis operator is just going to go right inside of here, just so that it'll deserialize that, and that's perfect. So what's going to happen is now anything which matched the format of the page that I just showed you will be deserialized straight into a component. So of course we're now going to have to change this slightly. So it's now a component. So instead of making a component of text, we're just going to return message manager dot leave arena. Okay, so now what we can do is now we've added the functionality. Let's have a bit of fun with writing something cool with this part of the API. So for example, if we were to write, let's say hello, and then we'll have a rainbow tag, and then we'll do world, and then close the rainbow tag, so the rainbow will stop there. We could say isn't, and then we could do underline, MiniMessage, and then close underlined. Fun, just like that. So that would be a nice little message. So what we can do, and by the way, for an apostrophe in a file, it's just a double apostrophe like that. So what we'll do is we'll go ahead and fire this up, and I will make it so that I can leave an arena, and hopefully we'll see this fancy message here, and then that'll basically demonstrate the viability of a custom messages file. So I'll go ahead and run my server, and I'll see you guys in a second. Alright, so I'm heading in now. As you can see, I've just spawned, and I'll go ahead and join one of my arenas. So arena join 1. Now, of course, we haven't changed these messages, so we shouldn't expect anything. However, when I do arena quit, we should now see, there we go. Hello world, isn't MiniMessage fun? Now, how cool is that? So basically, MiniMessage is just components, but in a string. Of course, we can't use components in a string because they're an API feature of Adventure. It's just calling classes. So this is just the string representation of it. So basically, whenever you're doing message files, I highly recommend not just doing default strings, allowing people to customize the color and use all the special features outlined in this link. Now, the MiniMessage docs will be attached alongside this video, of course, as well as the source code for this video in case you got a little lost. But for me, I think this was a great video on demonstrating how you might tackle allowing the user to customize the messages for your plugin. All you need to do is just do this as I did and then populate it with all your messages. I accept that it will take quite a lot of time, but I believe in you, you can do it. So thank you so much for watching, guys, and I'll see you in the next one.